Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Rewrite the Song. This podcast is for people that are struggling with anxiety, trying to recover from anxiety, looking for hope and a solution to their anxiety. This podcast was started in response to somebody that wanted to read my blog posts, but isn't much of a reader. So here we are online. You can listen to this anywhere. So there's our solution. This is called Follow the Energy, Synchronicities. I'm recording this on a Sunday evening, which is totally amazing because Sunday evenings for me as a sufferer from anxiety used to be just downright awful. I knew that I wouldn't be getting much sleep tonight, knowing that tomorrow's Monday. And just the bare thought of going to sleep, or at least trying to go to sleep, was just a lot. And that is now gone. So as always, as you get to know me, I'm never here to brag. I'm here to show anybody that is looking for answers that there are answers and there is a solution. And there's hope. And it does get better. So I know that I used to hate when people say, you just hang in there. It gets better. And it does, but it doesn't help much when you're in the middle of it. What does help, I think, is having a distraction and, listening to something calming. So without really even trying, people have told me that I have a calm voice. So I'm surprised by that because, yes, I realize I have a calm voice now, but, even when I was just in the thick of anxiety where I could pretty much jump out a window at any moment, people would say, "Man, are you calm?" But that was just a facade. I was also a master of disguise and a chameleon. So even though I appeared to be calm, I definitely was not. But I hope this podcast helps you. If you can't sleep, sometimes listening to something is helpful. And I'm not a medical doctor, so some of the stuff that I do that works for me may not be in line with what a medical professional would say. I'm not a medical professional. One example is that I've heard once that, you should unplug and get rid of all technology while sleeping. You shouldn't fall asleep with the TV on. And that sounds great unless you are somebody that is recovering from trauma, PTSD, or anxiety, or addiction. And my saving grace has always been a TV or a audio sound in the background. Don't get me wrong, I meditate daily. I have no problem being alone in silence. That's not the issue at all. For me, though, to fall asleep, I have a racing mind, and so I need a distraction. And I sleep like a baby. Well, not like a baby. I sleep well, let me just tell you that. All right, so let's get into this podcast. This is a blog post, one of my all-time favorites. Also has the second most views on my website, jakepaulmusic.com. And I think it's because it's so inspirational. It's called Follow the Energy, Synchronicities. So my path was full of signs that I couldn't ignore any longer. And if you're new to the phrase synchronicities, that's like when things that are happening in your life that you cannot explain, that are beyond coincidence. And so for me, the number 4 kept showing up. And, the Bible blew open one time. I don't know if I wrote about that in this blog post because I'm just looking at it without really scoping through it. I wrote it a few months back. But if I don't get to the Bible story in this podcast, then there's your incentive to come back because it's coming soon. It's just a phenomenal miracle story that I just couldn't even explain. But anyway, let's get into this one. I'm going to kind of read it and throw my 2 cents in when I think it's appropriate. So relax, unwind, get into a comfortable position, and let's get into it. This blog is for people who are interested in living their best life, but need a little support in pursuing it. It's my belief that the anxiety I suffered from for many years was the result of an inner conflict, one of which I was confused about and didn't know how to process and work through, which was also preventing me from living in alignment with my true purpose. I'll reference the theme from the Matrix movie in this post because, like Neo, I was living a double life. And living with 2 identities was, at its core, fueling my anxiety. On the one hand, I was doing all the things I was supposed to be doing. Good job, great attendance, hard worker, fun to be around, people pleaser, and so on. People complimented me often for my positive attitude, my work ethic, and determination. I felt like I was doing good in the eyes of the world. On the other hand, I had a deep yearning to live a different life, one of which I didn't know how to build or create or establish. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to write more music, clean up my lifestyle, give up drinking, and most of all, ditch this damn anxiety. I could identify what I didn't want and what I didn't like, but I was confused about what it is that I do want. How can I tell you, and how will I know? As I wrote about in my book, Hollow, How a Young Man Turned Childhood Trauma into Music, I experienced a profound miracle when I was in my 20s, where the Bible blew open to a specific page, and I knew that it was speaking directly to me. Now, I know what you're thinking. Anyone could interpret any page of the Bible as speaking directly to them. But this was different. It was a student Bible which had specific examples of interpretations of specific passages that newcomers could use and apply to their own life. For me, it was a passage about destiny and fate, and not wanting to be stuck in a dead-end rut, which I desperately needed to hear at that specific time, at that very moment. More specifically, I'm not reading right now, I'm just speaking off script. I was in turmoil with my own father, who is an active alcoholic, and I was just like hopeless that I was going to be like him, trapped, miserable, harmful to others. And I was terrified, really, that there was no way out, that was just like the way it was. So I was walking around a college campus at the time, and I was by myself with that Bible. And it was a Friday night, so I was trying to avoid the party scene. So I was like on my own, just kind of walking around with this Bible. And it was stormy, and I sat down at a bench and thought I'd start maybe reading it or something. And because it was, windy, it was about to storm. The book just like blew open. So that's where part of me thinks back at that, and I go, well, maybe that was just the wind. But, I ordered another copy of that same Bible on Amazon just to kind of verify what I experienced. So page 806, 807, 808, there's a passage in Ezekiel called Turn and Live. It's about a boy who was desperately struggling to avoid turning out like his father. And the message in Ezekiel was that, God gives us free will to do what we want or what we choose, and that we are not destined to drunkenness. And that's exactly what the thing said in the Bible. And that's exactly what I was struggling with at the time. And that book blew open, and it was speaking directly to me. So back to the blog post here. When I saw the book fly open to that page, I almost lost my breath. I go into full details in my book, Hollow, by the way. So let's stop for a second and address your doubt. Do you think for a second that I could make that story up? If you know me, you know I wouldn't do that. Maybe you think I was crazy or in an altered state of mind. If you know me, I could see why you would think that, but I wasn't. And as a matter of fact, I was walking around campus by myself at the time so that I could avoid the people I was regularly hanging out with, who were very likely off at a party, indulging in things that would produce an altered state of mind. I was not coming from a party when the miracle happened. Lastly, whether you believe me or not is your problem at this point, right? I offer you to consider this question. Which belief would give you a better outcome? What you believe to be true becomes true for you. So knowing that, you now have some choices. You could go on with your own life as it is, down the metaphorical blue path of doubt. Like, this guy's story is a waste of my time. No way any of that really happened. I'm going to go back to my own way of living. You could go follow the metaphorical red path of possibility. Like, what if a new life is possible for me? Is there really something greater than us guiding us? So I said to myself, if that event, which I'm calling an absolute miracle, did in fact happen, and was more than a random coincidence, then surely I can draw upon that energy again, right? I squirmed and wiggled internally a little bit because if it's not true and the miracle was a figment of my imagination, then all of this beyond coincidence jargon is some self deluded form of coping with the fear of living a life for which I have no control over. But then again, I wouldn't be writing this and you wouldn't be listening to this if I had not truly experienced an amazing miracle happen before my very eyes. So I choose, yes, there is a higher form of energy guiding me. And I remind myself to at least try to believe that there is something out there that is with me at all times when I am feeling doubtful. That moment and decision to ask for guidance and be open to believe it will come from a source that is a higher power than myself or any other human is when something started that had irreversible effects. I started seeing the number 4, 44, and 444 everywhere, and it began to happen when I started sincerely and genuinely praying for a sign. When I say sincerely and genuinely, I mean this. I stopped asking for what I thought I wanted, like more money, bigger house, a better job, more time, nicer car, etc. And I realized I had been trying to negotiate for stuff as opposed to praying. In other words, it used to be like, Dear God, if you give me this, then I will do that more often and never do that other thing ever again. But now I started asking to be useful to others for peace of mind, contentment, direction, and purpose. And I ended my prayers with, Your will, not mine. In the scene in The Matrix where Neo visits the Oracle for the first time, she confirms his own inner belief system, and when she can sense his self-doubt, she then gives him a cookie to help him forget about all this fate crap. He then tries to go back into his normal life, and that's where things get more interesting for him. I too tried to go back on with my normal life, which included an inner ping pong match between the realist and the idealist in my head. What was I thinking? I need to learn how to appreciate the good job I have. Yeah, I had a traumatic childhood, but I need to get over it. I don't need to be going out there publicizing it and making everyone think I'm a whiner and a complainer. Life is what it is. I need to accept that. And if I just earn more money and buy bigger and better things, I'll be happy then. I can work harder at this. But it was too late to go back. The signs began to appear. Let me give a quick backstory to set this up for you. I've always been a fan of the number 4 for some odd reason. It's always been my favorite number, ever since I was a kid. Paul Molitor, Milwaukee Brewer, number 4. Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers, number 4. When people would ask what my favorite number is, number 4 just came to mind for some reason. Not sure really why. When the following coincidences started happening, I thought maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see. Like, those psychological blotting tests that you always hear about. Then I woke up a couple days in a row at 4:44 a.m. without my alarm being set. You ever tried doing that on purpose? I sure didn't. I just woke up wide awake at that time. Now here's the thing. Why wouldn't I wake up at like 4:43 or 4:45? Why would my eyes just pop open at 4:44? On another instance, while brushing my teeth, I noticed the number 4 was etched into the drain plug in my sink. I took a picture of it, posted on my blog post on my site. Interesting, I told myself, because by this time the number 4 had been showing up more frequently in my daily life. By now, I was beginning to wonder why I kept seeing this number again. Maybe there was more to it than random occurrence. All within a couple of weeks of one another, the signs were becoming too much to ignore. I also posted a picture on my blog of my receipt. I went to a restaurant, ordered a farmhouse avocado toast breakfast. My number was 4:44. I was having a moment of massive stress at school, teaching 30 middle schoolers how to cook, when suddenly I looked at the stove clocks. The power had gone out shortly before then, and all 6 ovens in my foods room had the time flashing on them, and the time was, you guessed it, 4:44. I also posted pictures of this on my website. I was playing darts with my son, and my score landed on 4:44 2 times in a row. We're playing 501. Now, all these things just seem like random coincidences. I know it's fine. I don't, blame you for thinking that at all. But when it keeps happening, like on my stock account, I have an E-Trade stock account. I took a picture of my day's earnings, 444. All these happen within a short period of time from one another. So what does it all mean? Well, how the hell should I know? Haha, just kidding. Now, here's what I really think it means. Since I was asking for help and like looking for guidance, asking for a sign, I think these were reassurances, like that I was on the path, so to speak. I think it means like two things also. If you ask for like a sign, you got to be sure to like get out of your own way. Like, for example, my prayer started to change. Thy will, not mine, as opposed to like a wish list. And then I started looking more for signs and synchronicities, like clues. And I know that the doubter in me wants to think, well, you see what you want to see. But I only showed you a few of the pictures. And it doesn't matter if I showed you no pictures. Something internally changed for me. Some call it a spiritual awakening. I put some other images on my blog that I'm looking at now about 444 angel numbers and meanings. And there's a lot of stuff out there about what those numbers represent. One source that I found, which I screenshotted and posted, was it means that there's divine protection and guidance. So for me then, it indicates that angels are watching, and I believe that. It also means that significant big changes are coming in my life. And when I turned 44, I gave up alcohol. For me, it was an easy choice. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung has written a lot about this topic as well. And I linked some of his writings about synchronicities on my blog post. So in closing, if you're on the fence about making a change in your life and you're afraid and you're ridden with anxiety like I was, all I can do is tell you to ask for guidance from above or from wherever. And when you see the signs, follow them. That's what I mean by follow the energy. It may not be a gigantic eagle landing in your living room. The sign may not be a huge elephant crashing through your door. But when you see it, you'll feel it. Things illuminate. You might think, that was interesting. Or, what a coincidence. And from my experience, those are the indicators that you're on the path. Well, that concludes this that concludes this blog reading. And so, yay, we did get into the Bible story after all. I wasn't sure if it was this one or the next one. But if you're interested in reading more, check out jakepaulmusic.com. That's my personal music website where I write about how I used music to cope with trauma. Hey, if you have a story to share, email me, jake@jakepaulmusic.com. There's a format we could follow, but this isn't about you going online and like airing out your dirty laundry or throwing anybody under the bus. It's more or less about discussing your story and what you're doing in a positive way to cope with it. And if you want to get your story out, but you don't want to speak about it, email me and I can, connect with you and maybe I can read your story. But one thing I know for certain is getting the story out there, whether you mention, specifics or not is your choice, but just getting the story out there, as in like out of your heart and mind, and sharing it with another person who's been there is a total game changer. So hopefully by now you are calm, or even better, hopefully you're asleep. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for stopping by. Be well.